Before we get to the schizoid ranting, I just want to remind you, don't like, don't subscribe, fuck you, fuck tech billionaires, install an ad blocker, 9/11 was an inside job, Ron Paul for president, the N-word. I don't know where I'm going to upload this, but I do seem to have YouTube on my mind. And then I'll post a little thumbnail of my soy face screaming at some bullshit from Marvel, and then I'll get banned immediately. And then I can go to Spotify, where hate speech is not only tolerated, but cried about by the developers. Anyway, I need to practice talking. This has very little to do with COVID lockdown, unfortunately. I talk to the boomers at work. I see my friends once a month, maybe, and that doesn't seem to be enough. I'm not really convinced that recording retarded monologues on the internet will actually help me talk to people better. But at this point, I'm more concerned with just trying not to lose my voice, if you take my meaning. You spend enough time silent or silenced, and you start to close in, like squeezing yourself into a little box. And if you get accustomed to that, you might forget what your original wingspan was. So I do some talking. It doesn't have to be uploaded to anything or even recorded. But it's one thing to have an unsuccessful podcast, and that would be sad. But imagine sitting in your room and just talking to yourself with no intention of ever being heard by anyone. That just sounds fucking crazy. Besides, I suppose I could hope to make some money out of this or get some attention. Maybe Joe Rogan will mail me an elk butt. And I do think putting something out there for people to make fun of is an important step in the creative process, though I will not explain why. Fuck you. And maybe one person will listen, and I'll take 12 minutes of your life that you can't have back. If enough people watch at 12 minutes a pop, that could really add up to a lot of life stolen. I could even kill a guy. Plus, by that line of thinking, we could establish once and for all that PewDiePie is literally worse than Hitler. Anyway, I originally wrote a script for this, and maybe it's just me and my autism, but it ended up sounding super gay when I just was reading off the script. So instead, I'm just going to try to remember what I wanted to talk about and say it, and then you can listen to my long pauses and my stumbles and stuttering and me sniffing as I think, because apparently I do that. And maybe I'll edit this to fix that. Maybe I'll figure out how to remove background noise. Maybe I'll do none of that. I'll do what I want. You're not my real dad. Anyway, I've been thinking about something with COVID, Kung flu, bad AIDS, chink AIDS. That's the most offensive one I know. And I'm not really thinking about, the disease itself so much as how we think about it. Because everywhere you look, there's information and misinformation and accusations of misinformation and misinformations of accusation. That worked. Fuck you. The point is, there's this vast landscape of data points, and you could look at some subset of them and from that draw a perfectly valid conclusion about what's going on that disagrees on every point with another perfectly valid conclusion that was drawn from a different subset of data points. So theoretically, we all have access to the same information. If we were perfect logicians, we would agree 100% on everything, which we don't do because we're dumb. I think 5% of people are smart. 5% of people can think like a perfect scientist sometimes. They can look at information, they can suss out what's true, what's wrong, what's valid, and they can draw a conclusion that is reasonable and relatively free of biases and is in line with reality. The other 95%, of which I am a part, and probably you if you're listening to an idiot rant on the internet, we don't really think like scientists. We have how we feel things are, and then we rationalize it after the fact. I think that's how most of us work. We're basically emotional state machines. We move from one state to another, and once we decide how we feel about something, the rational brain comes skittering along behind to rationalize, to make us feel like we reasoned ourselves into these positions. So if you think about it from that point of view, if you were to divide, people's opinions on COVID into two categories, there's the death flu category and the hype flu category, or team camps. I'm in the hype flu camp, and I understand that I'm one of the 95%, so, I didn't really reason my way into this. I wouldn't go so far as to say that I think it's made up or a hoax. I do think it's been overblown. I think most of us can agree that the media is a scumbag that lies to us. So I felt like things will be okay and everything is going to be fine. I felt like because I want it, right? I want everything to be okay. I want it all to be fine. I want to go back to normal soon. I want to be able to get a haircut. I want you to be able to get a haircut. I want all of us to get haircuts together, and we'll have a haircut party where nobody has to wear a mask. Unless it's a fun mask, like a gorilla mask. Man, it's gonna be good when COVID's over. We can all be gorillas. But then I think about the other side, Camp Death Flu. And let's say all 5% of the smart people are in Camp Death Flu. Right? Let's say I'm objectively wrong and they are objectively right, and this is the end of the world. We're all gonna die. It'll turn your dog gay and convert your grandma to Islam. Just imagine the worst possible scenario. That's what it's gonna be. So all 5% of the smart people are on Camp Death Flu because that's subjective truth. But that camp is a lot bigger than 5% of the population. So I think about that section. The people who are just as dumb as me but happen to agree with the right thing. Because they didn't reason their ways into it. We are the 95%. So, what I wonder about with these people is, why? Why do you want it to be the end of the world? Why do you want this to be the worst case scenario and it's the deadliest virus and it's gonna kill us all and stay inside and wait for death? It could be like these Reddit 20-year-olds you see who can't wait for the revolution because they're not winning the game right now. And so when you have nothing to lose, you can just hope that after the Great Reset, when we shake up the globe, that they'll settle on top this time. It could be that. It could be. There does seem to be some kind of political component to people's attitudes about it, which points to an element of tribalism. But politics is boring. If it ain't Kanye, then who cares? The thing that I find, or the possible explanation I find most interesting, is obviously some made up bullshit. I think maybe there's like a death drive, a death compulsion, death instinct. I read about this in The Demolished Man by Alfred Bester, and maybe I draw too much meaning from fiction because this is not that different from the retards who compare politics to Harry Potter. But it's also a Freudian concept, or Jungian, or one of those psychology crackpots. Death compulsion, death drive, thanatos. Maybe it's this unconscious desire for self-destruction. Maybe you're so bored with your own existence that you crave catastrophe. Maybe it's just a suicide instinct, but like pussy, because you need to be passive in a way where you can't be held responsible for actually offing yourself. And I couldn't explain or even begin to guess why we might have that instinct, effectively making this whole thing fucking pointless. but I guess grab a psychology textbook if you really care, because clearly I didn't care enough to grab one myself. But I did grab a pussy. Ain't that some shit? But you know, I don't think it's so bad. Things aren't that bleak. Maybe you should cheer up and join Team Hype Flu. We can get haircuts and spit in each other's mouths. It'll be super hot. I know you're into that. But when you go out to your old people nightclubs, wear the cuck mask out of politeness for the feeble, if nothing else. Asshole. Hopefully this gets better in the future as I learn to talk or learn to edit. I tried poorly. And this is what you get. I could also learn about things before I talk about them, but I'm in the 95%. And you're right there with me. Don't act like you're better than me. Even the 5%, we're all 95%. In that one part, I tried to guess how long this would be, and I was off by a minute. I don't want to go back and redo it, so I'm just going to add reflections and musings at the end to kill some time for the sake of a stupid joke. Okay, that's it.